Okay, so let's talk about positioning because for a really long time I felt this way, and I know a lot of artists do. The work that you're making is a world unto itself. You know, you're writing a book, you're writing a story, you've created a series of paintings, you've made a film. It's doing so much. It is that prefigurative intervention potentially. It has power. It does work in the world that you don't want to interfere with. You don't want to dilute it. You don't want to, you know, intervene in the work that it's here to do. But you need to. And this is why, because of positioning. So let's talk about positioning. Whoops. Um, oh, do I want to do that next slide? No, I want to do this slide. Positioning starts in your studio, your kitchen table, your writing desk, your rehearsal space, wherever it is, the crucible where you do your work. In that space, you are engaging with the lineage of your craft, your artistry. You're engaging with your influences and your inspirations and um, your personal story that, consciously and unconsciously, all kinds of things are going into it. And you have this felt sense of where this thing lives in relation to all of that. Whether you can explain it to others or not, no matter. You're planted there. And as you move out of the studio into the world, you run into the world of your fans, those people who really geek out about the things you geek out about. Like these are the people who are like the same kind of nerd that you are, or they've become that way because they've spent enough time around you that they've like immersed in this work that you do, and they'll come to everything that you do and they'll share and they'll spread the word, and they get it. They get it, right? So those blue arrows are like the meaning of your work, making its mark in the world, moving out into the realm of your fans. The orange arrows are also the places where your fans are bringing their own associations and their own cultural influences. And that's starting to shape the meaning of your work for them, right? And that's so interesting. Like so many artists say, I want my work to go out there, and I don't want to tell people how to feel. I want to see what happens, right? It's really fascinating to see what happens. As you move on to the people who are just learning about you, who bump into your work online or wherever it is, walk by the gallery window, whatever it is, these folks have much less of a context for your work's meaning. And these arrows are pointing inward because it's like the bigger cultural forces that shape how we understand story and image start to come in and put pressure on the meanings that you're working with, right? And it's kind of like if you don't kind of position yourself in your work out there very deliberately, the world will start to position your work for you, you know, until you get to the everyone else category. And now, you know, your work is adrift in the larger kind of sea of references, associations, um, things that are happening culturally that you have no interest in, but are giving everyone out there this context for understanding your work that you didn't choose. So imagine, it's occurring to me at this moment that I need a specific example, I think, for you. Imagine that the person at the center of this is someone who's making, I'm just going to make this up, short films uh, that are kind of vintage sci-fi and lineage, right? Like campy vintage sci-fi short films, and they're about climate and the environment, right? Super niche, like many of you. Here are the sci-fi film nerds. Here are the climate and environment folks who love art and film. Here are your friends and your schoolmates and whoever around you, right? And as you move out, you start running into other associations like the giant film entertainment industrial complex, right? People who have no idea about those, like who aren't thinking about climate change, who have no idea about sci-fi vintage film and don't care. But what they know about science fiction is from Terminator and The Matrix and some of them really awesome, fabulous movies, but that's their context, right? So there's a piece of context that's been lost. And this is the point where you get to say, okay, what is my position here? Am I wanting to be legible to a large scale film audience? If my career plays out the way I want it to, do I want to be getting Hollywood funding to make feature length films? Or am I heading in the direction of the fine art world? Do I want these short films to be shown at the Whitney Museum, right? Or do I actually want to say screw it to both those worlds? And do I want my short films to be used in activist and movement spaces, right? Or do I want my films to be used as branded content for environmental organizations and tech companies that are working on environmental solutions? So you could almost imagine those as these big, outer realms. And your job is to figure out kind of what direction you're marching in and how to contextualize your work so those people can see you and see the results it can bring to engage with your work there. Is this making sense? Ask a question, someone. Anyone have a question? Exactly, Jessica. Oh, you make comics like Batman, like Peanuts, like the New Yorker? And even artists, even the word artist has a bunch of branding around it that might not refer to us. When I tell people I'm an artist, they always say, oh, what gallery are you with? I'm like, I'm not even a part of that world, right? let's dial it all the way back and talk about what an artist is. This is a term that we each get to think about rebranding. All right, looks like no questions yet. All right.
I can only chime into what you just said.
Go right ahead.
I went to my farmer's market here and they asked me what I was doing. I said I was doing comics. They asked for kids and I said no, for adults. Mm-hmm. And left the conversation. And then my partner told me, Lisa, now they think you're doing porn.
That's